Hey, Boomer here on this April 18th, day after Easter, where we got snow. Don't you love Michigan? I think last night it got to, 24 degrees, and I think the high today was 39, and that was just for a minute. It's been like 34 to 37 all day. I've been on the road all day. I wanted to take just a few minutes on this video and address a topic that was brought up in one of the forums that I belong to, where a young man was brand new to motorcycling, just got his endorsement, and wanted to go out and get an Electroglide because he's a bigger guy, so he thought he needed an Electroglide, or any big bike I imagine would have done. But he specifically mentioned the Electroglide. You know, I'm not your mom, I'm not your dad. This is the United States of America. Do what you want, but no. And I'll tell you why. You know, I don't know if many of you are aware that I used to teach wilderness survival for the YMCA. I developed the class for the young campers. And one of the questions that I would ask is, if you're finding yourself alone walking in the woods and you know there's animals out there, do you want to be very quiet or do you want to make a lot of noise? And almost always the young campers, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, would say, oh, you want to be very quiet because you don't want to attract the animals, right? Well, the answer is no, you want to make a lot of noise. See, interesting about animals is that they can't count. And by and large, they don't want to have a whole lot to do with humans. So if they hear humans, they don't know if it's one human or 10 humans, but typically they're going to go the opposite direction, typically. So the subject would always come up, well, what about bear? What do you do if you encounter a bear? And it always got to a, well, what if this? And, well, what if that? You see, the same thing applies now with this topic about new riders that applied back then when I was talking to the campers. There are no guarantees in wilderness survival, in riding motorcycles, in life in general. I've heard the old expression, the only guarantees are death and taxes. Well, your job is to put as many of the odds in your favor that are going to help you towards success. In other words, don't do stupid things. And a lot of that, most of that, if not all of it, comes from training, learning, which is a lifelong process. And that's what I would tell the kids. There are no guarantees, but put all the odds that you can in your favor to help you be successful. Now, when it comes to being a new rider, fresh out of the MSF course, Motorcycle Safety Foundation, or the Harley Rider course, whatever you took, is it wise to jump on an 800+ pound motorcycle? Now, I get it. You have your endorsement, you want to ride with the big boys, if you will. But is it smart? Are you ready for that? Now, I mentioned in another video about seeing smaller female riders, Meg from Meg's Motorcycle Journey, Doodle on a motorcycle, another YouTuber. And they were at the Ride Like a Pro course, Jerry Palladino. And these are these smaller women that were in fact riding these 800+ pound motorcycles successfully, skillfully on his course. Did they jump on that bike right away and do that? No. It took time, dedication to learn, to practice. But if the logic that I'm a bigger rider, so I need an 800+ pound motorcycle were to follow through, then these smaller women should not be on anything over 450 pounds, 400-pound motorcycles. See, it's very little to do with size. Some, especially if you're trying to flat foot when you come to a stop. I think of another YouTuber, Shay Lisi. She's small, but she rides about any bike out there. But size is a smaller consideration, but what's a bigger consideration? Experience, skill, learning. And that takes time, my friends. It would not be, in my opinion, and I'll say what I've said before, I'm not your mom, I'm not your dad, we're all adults, but I believe Scripture says something about wisdom coming from consultation with 2 or 3. So you learn from the experience of others, of those who have gone before you. We all know that. So when you get out of the MSF course as a brand new rider, it would be my advice to go out and find yourself a smaller bike. I'm not talking a monkey bike or a Grom or anything like that, but something reasonable. A metric bike, a Honda, a Yamaha. And the reason I mention those specifically is because if you go to YouTube or Facebook Marketplace, CycleTrader.com, you can find these metric bikes that are still in running shape, $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 all day long. You get these smaller bikes, not small bikes, smaller bikes that you can learn on, because trust me, you will drop your bike as a new rider, unless you're the exception to the rule. Now, do you want to have a $15,000 Electroglide or whatever you paid for it? They're a lot more than that, the newer they are. Or a $1,500 Honda. Which one do you want to drop? Because you will drop your bike. Like I said, unless you're the exception to the rule as a new rider. Because you don't have the skill and the experience that comes with learning and practice. On the MSF course, or whatever training you take, but specifically the MSF course, listen, you're not going to go more than about 30 miles an hour, tops, if even that, on a closed parking lot. That's where you're at. And I mentioned in another video that you'll learn about counter steering, which is essential for riding a motorcycle, but you're really not going to practice that in a parking lot at 25, 30 miles an hour. Can't do it. But you have to learn it. I've seen enough new riders and enough videos of new riders to see the mistakes that are made. You need to learn how to lean the motorcycle into curves. You know, the number one cause of accidents when a motorcycle is involved with another vehicle are other vehicles, cars specifically, turning left in front of the motorcycle. But the number one cause of motorcycle accidents when it's just the motorcycle is failure to negotiate curves too fast, or not knowing how to counter steer. You need that practice. And if you get on an 800+ pound motorcycle fresh out of MSF or whatever training you took, in my opinion, you're asking for trouble. You're not ready for it. Unless you are the exception to the rule. But this is no time for bravado. Do you want to take that chance? Are you the one exception out of 1,000 that's not going to drop his bike, or worse? Maybe. But the odds are not in your favor. We talked about odds, right? And then, you know, the great thing about these metric bikes is that when you're ready to move up, you can sell them for pretty much what you paid for them. So again, I understand wanting to get the bigger bike, the more powerful bike, the newer bike. But that's not always wise. Now, what is important is whatever bike you get. And if you're going to get an older metric bike, which in my opinion makes sense, but you have to make sure that it's safe. Now, I recall a long time ago hearing that as a parent, and I have 5 grown children, but as a parent, when your teenager wants to borrow the car, do you give them the clunker or do you give them the nicer car? Knee-jerk reaction is give them the clunker. What if they wreck it? But think about it. You want to give them the nicer car because a nicer car most likely has the airbags, the anti-lock brakes, it's up to date on its maintenance, and should something happen, heaven forbid, they're going to be safer in the newer car. It's just one way of looking at it. So no matter what you're riding, it has to be safe. Do your T-clocks if you're familiar with that. Tires, controls, lights, chassis, kickstand. What's the O? Help me out. What's the O? I'm going to have to do a video on that, but I got to brush up on it. Oils. Oils in your fluids. You check all that. Anyway, I'm going down a rabbit hole. I'm going to close the video out here just with another admonition that if you are a newer rider just coming out of MSF or Harley Rider course, or your friend down the street taught you, get a bike that makes sense. And to me, based on what I have seen, based on their availability, and it doesn't have to be a metric bike. I mean, it could be an old Sportster, you know. But get a bike that makes sense, that you're not going to be butthurt if you drop it, and that you can develop your skills on, you can practice on. Get better. Fill up that bucket of experience before your bucket of luck runs out. I heard that expression and I thought that was so good. You want your bucket of experience to fill up before your bucket of luck runs out. The kayaks back there from 3 of my kids that kayak. We live near the Shiawassee River. Yeah, you want your bucket of experience to fill up, and that only comes with practice, learning, training. Right back there, the old Silver Wing. That poor girl. I brought her out because I'm working on her, getting her ready for a bike show next Sunday, May 1st, if it's not snowing out. I hope it's not snowing. Of course, didn't expect it to be snowing the day after Easter yet. Here we are, the winter wonderland that is Michigan. I'm from Maryland, originally, born and raised. We had winter in Maryland, and it's not unusual for some winters for Maryland to have more snow than Michigan does. But certainly it does not get as cold in Maryland as it does in Michigan. Winter does not last as long in Maryland as it does in Michigan. But you bloom where you're planted, right? So listen, take the video for what it's worth for a brand new rider. If you want to go out and get yourself an 800 plus pound electric glide, whatever. You know, I said that when you come out of the MSF course, you're not going to go from a Honda Rebel 250 to a 1500 Valkyrie on the expressway. It's a process, learning, training. I don't know how many times I say it. Practice, learn, train, practice, learn, train. And it doesn't matter how long you've been riding, continue to practice, learn, train. Kevin at MC Rider, he drills that into your head. Practice, practice, practice. Take the cones out onto the parking lot. Practice, practice, practice. He made a good point. He said, if you spend the first year learning, and then for 4 years after that, Can you now say you have 5 years of learning on a bike? No. You have 1 year of learning on a bike that you've continued to repeat for 4 years because you haven't learned anything new, you haven't practiced anything new. You might have been riding for 5 years, but you're doing it on 1 year's worth of experience. I thought that was pretty good. Just for what it's worth, these are the woods behind my house. Down there is the Shiawassee River somewhere. Sasquatch is down there. Yes, he is. I don't know if he rides a motorcycle, but I bet you if he was just out of MSF, it wouldn't be a street glide. So anyway, thanks for watching. And remember, life is not meant just to be walked through. It's meant to be experienced. Motorcycling is an experience. Make it a joyful one, but be smart about it. All right, bye for now. Thanks for watching.